Right now there are many categories of irons that you can buy, but which one is best for you and which one makes the game easier, which is the most forgiving? Well, we're going to look at three different types of iron today, and that is a player's iron, we're going to look at a game improvement iron, and then we're going to look at a hybrid iron, let's call it. 3/7 irons head to head, very similar in loft. One of them produces the numbers behind me, which I would say is pretty much the perfect shot with a 7 iron in hand. The question is, which one of these three was it? It's a solid shot. Felt really good. And we've hit one right down the middle there. 4/8 spin, peak height 88, land angle of 47.4, a 144 carry. And to be honest with you, that's a super set of numbers in itself. That came from the player's distance iron, as they call it, they categorise it. It's a tailor-made P790, that hollow-bodied forged iron that is hugely popular. And I've got to say, I'd be more than happy with those set of numbers. And I collect plenty of data with this club in hand. But essentially, we're going to look at three different models, like I suggested. This be the player's distance. We've then got a tailor-made QI iron, which is a bit of a chunkier profile. It's classed in that game improvement category. And then we've got something very, very different indeed, and that is a hybrid, a 7 hybrid. And that comes from a brand 11, something we've had a close look at in recent weeks. And I've really been hugely impressed by them, but I want to see how it stacks up when we put it up against two very, very popular categories. So I'll hit plenty more with this, but essentially what you're going to do and how you choose your iron is initially going to be based on a profile and shape that suits the eye, and I think that's hugely important. We've got three very different clubs here, and I think that one of the three will suit and two won't, and I think that you may be making a big mistake by neglecting some clubs just based purely on the way they look and perhaps the category that you think that you fall into. So the kind of things that I'm really interested in focusing on in today's video will be things like launch angle, then it'll be spin, and then it'll be land angle. Carry distance is always relative to club head speed, and the kind of forgiveness thing will all be sort of caught up in all of that. But when you're looking to choose an iron, I think very much launch angle, spin rate and land angle are hugely important. These are the type of clubs, and certainly from maybe 6 iron through to pitching wedge, these are the clubs that we're firing into greens. So what I don't want to see, and perhaps I'm worried about when I get to the game improvement iron, is those numbers dipping. So launching lower, spin rate dropping off the charts, and an altogether flatter ball flight. To me, it's almost like a contradiction right now. Game improvement irons do things that perhaps don't really help your game improve at all. In fact, they make it a little bit more difficult. But that's my preconception, and I'll move on from hitting this tailor-made P790, and let's get into that QI iron, that game improvement iron from TaylorMade. So straight away we're into a much more chunkier profile, let's say. The sole width gets wider, the overall profile of the body, that top line, we know all this, the face gets bigger. And certainly for many golfers, they'll look at this type of club and be turned away straight away simply because of that profile. A lot more offset address, so you're looking at things now that you don't like the look of. Irrelevant of what the performance is, but again, are we being a bit silly? Are we being a little bit almost in the sort of golf snobbery world when it comes to clubs? I know I would certainly be guilty of that. I'd much rather play a blade than this type of club. But in reality, what does it do when it comes to performance? Well, let's first one of the day with the QI and see what happens. I went off like an absolute rocket, let me tell you. I thought it was a bit better than that. 151 carry, launch really high, which is something I was, like I said, slightly concerned about. We've got that land angle, launch angle, and a spin rate that is higher than what I've seen with the P790. Meaning that the first shot in is a little bit surprising, but also incredibly successful, in my opinion, across all parameters. So straight away, are we already seeing an improvement from a P790 in my hands into a QI Super Game Improvement iron? Well, I'm not sure just yet. I'll hit plenty more balls and give you my opinion when we do an analysis at the end. But I've got to say, a real good start for the QI iron. And if this continues, maybe it'll be me that's changing my irons sooner than I thought. Right, let's have one more while the camera's rolling. Again, super solid strike. Launch is the first thing, high launching ball. A little bit cutty on that, but still really like that combination of a fast ball speed off of a club head speed. And a real interesting point to note actually before I go through those things, the P790 has got a loft of 30 degrees on the 7 iron. This has got a loft of 28 degrees. Now, this has been an age-old debate within irons and the lofts of irons, but what's happened here is we've got a stronger lofted club by 2 degrees, and yet it launches higher than that of the P790. So don't get confused that everything is about the loft of a club, because I've done it many, many times before. Loft is only one parameter that makes, or characteristic rather, that makes up a golf club's performance. So that dispels that theory that strong lofted clubs just do one thing. They don't. It's not all about distance, there's a combination. And we've seen two shots there where a 28 degree iron launches the ball higher, spins the ball higher, has got a steeper descent angle than that of the 30 degree iron. That's a really important point. Decent performance off those two. I'll hit plenty more and we'll get something into the equation for our end analysis. And the next one I move into is the slight curveball into this whole equation, and it's a hybrid, a 7 hybrid, exactly the same. We've got 30, or is it 31 degrees loft actually on this one, and we'll see how that performs. Right, if I could stop for 2 seconds and just interject with, I get a lot of questions at the minute, both on Instagram and on recent YouTube videos, about what am I wearing exactly in terms of a new brand, and well, the cap states it all really. It's Wolsey, both head to toe really. Trousers are theirs, hoodie is theirs, and obviously the cap is as well. And it's a fairly small range within their sort of wardrobe, their new golf range that is. So I'll put a link down in the description below. Go and check it out, and then I don't have to continually answer questions as to what it is that I've got on. But I've got to say, I'm super impressed with it, and it seems others are too. A little bit off the bottom grooves. Our bottom grooves, and we'll take it. So we're into the hybrid. Interesting enough, and just to confirm, 31 degrees of loft, and that wasn't a great shot, to be quite honest with you. Really surprised at how well that did, and perhaps another good telltale sign on what forgiveness looks like. But a key parameter there, first of all, that strikes a chord is that spin rate. Bottom grooves, but 7.2 spin. Now, a little bit spinny, but we'll see how that sort of pans out when he hits a few shots. But launching at 18.8 off the bottom grooves, and that land angle is still remaining at 47.7. Like I said, with a terrible shot. So let's see if we can get a good shot. It'll be a little bit unfair to 11 if that becomes our barometer. That's a much more solid strike rather. Straight away, yeah, with ball speed jumped up to 110. Launching at just under 21. Spin rate is the big shocker at the moment, 7,500 revs, 50 degree land angle, so it's coming down steep. There again, spinning just a little tad high, but a complaint that I never normally have when I'm hitting indoors. This is something that I really struggle with. Again, I say it in every video. People who watch the channel over a long period of time know that my 7 iron numbers were, if I can get a sort of spin rate in and around 5,000 revs off these mats, then I'm more than happy that that translates into good performance out on the golf course. So for me to argue about it spinning too high, that's quite a shock. So again, we'll see how this balances out over a set of numbers, because off camera in the warm-up, I've got to say we weren't spinning it that high. So I'll hit plenty more shots, and again, I'll give you an evaluation. But the big deal for me is this: I've got to grab 2 clubs, and I'll go to the P790, and this is what we're familiar with, isn't it? This is a 7 iron, standard 7 iron, P790. We know what this looks like. We put it at address, and there's no great shockers. We're all comfortable with that. And then you get this thing, and it's a hybrid with 31 degrees aloft. And you're thinking to yourself, can I get this right in my head? When I sit that at address, I see a lot of club face, I see a lot of loft, and I see a big club. I see a hybrid, and it doesn't resonate in the brain as it would an iron. And I think that's something that you've got, irrelevant of what the performance is right now, that's something that you have to buy into. And I've got to admit that for me, that was something that was difficult to do. But when I've seen the performance out of these things, then I'm willing to buy in. And when you do lay this hybrid behind the ball, and you see a lot of that club face compared to that of a standard iron equivalent, to me, my confidence level is far greater with this hybrid in hand than it is with the standard iron. And I think it just presents what seems to be a lot more loft. And the fact that I've got a lot more club head behind the ball gives me the confidence, and I've said this before, where I don't feel like I've got to make a great deal of effort to get this thing to work better than this does in terms of ball speeds as well. So I'll carry on hitting some more balls as I did with each of the other two, and we'll see what the end comparison and results reveal. Right, so this is very much an experiment. We're indoor at Chester and North Wales Golf Academy, and this is it's TrackMan data, and there will be perhaps other considerations if you took these clubs out onto the golf course. Things like turf interaction and how you deliver the golf club is going to have an impact on what decision you might make. But this is my data from this morning's swing that I have. It's fairly consistent across the board, but we'll go through it one by one. P790, I've got the dispersion chart up here, but I've got to say that in all honesty, there wasn't a great deal of difference in terms of dispersion. I'm a firm believer in that dispersion is a lot to do with your swing and very little to do with the club. However, I do believe front to back distances and consistency of distance is a consideration when we talk about dispersion. Anyway, P790, that's the dispersion chart. We had a 149 carry, 22 launch, 4.6 spin, peak height of 45.9, and a peak height of 86 feet. Now, I've got a problem with all those numbers, to be quite honest with you. As I said, 5,000 revs of spin, coupled with those launch and land angles, I'm fairly comfortable. We were slightly slower with the club head speed or swing speed, and the other consideration is that we've got different shafts in each of these, which again will impact. So, decent set of numbers, familiar with the club head at address, love the sound and feel. I've got no reason why I wouldn't game that club. Then we move into the QI iron, which was quite a surprise, to be honest with you. Wouldn't be my choice off the shelf, not because aesthetically I think it's a really good iron, but it's a bit chunky for my eye. However, I've got to say I was a bit surprised by performance. A bit of a longer carry distance, but we also got to mention that this club head speed was up by 3 miles an hour, and if the P790 was 3 miles an hour faster, then that carry distance would have exceeded that 152. So always bear in mind there's considerations with all this data. But what was interesting, ball speed was good. Launch angle was probably the bit that surprised me, and just to reiterate that point, stronger lofted by 2 degrees, but launched the ball higher and spun the ball higher. Really just quashes any theory that strong lofted irons have got issues. They haven't. You've just got to understand why they're strong lofted in the first place. You've got that land angle of 42 degrees and a higher overall peak height. Now I'm saying that in terms of performance, apart from we were a little bit slower in swinging the P790s, that is a better set of numbers in my hands, the QI and the P790. And that's a bit of a shock, to be quite honest with you. So super surprised there. And then that final set of numbers, we ended up hitting a few more of the 11 hybrid. I'm baffled by this club. I'm baffled because it exceeds my performance expectations considerably, and a club that, to be quite honest with you, I'd probably not have gone near a year or two ago. I have got a 5 and 6 hybrid in the bag, so I'm certainly leaning that way. But again, 78.4, so same club head speed as what we swung with a QI, with a 147 carry. Now this is 3 degrees weaker than the QI. It's 31 degrees. It's the weaker of the 3 irons that we tested. It produced a 108 ball speed, which is in line with the QI, but quicker than the P790, which is lofted at 30 degrees, a degree stronger. An average launch of 19.3, so a slightly flatter ball flight, but where it gets interesting is a higher spin, peak height not too dissimilar than all three, and that land angle of 47.2. So oddly enough, what surprised me, there's a slightly more penetrating ball flight with the hybrid, which I was expecting just to go sort of up, coupled with a higher spin. It's a different combination, but again produces an incredibly consistent performance across all shots. We've got one little anomaly there that if we'd have took out, we've got a 16.1 launch, which really does sort of spoil things. Let's see if we're able to take that out. And that didn't make a massive difference. Takes launch, average launch up to 19.7. But what you've got is three very different golf clubs, and I think each has their own merits and is right for the type of golfer that you are. But what I wouldn't do is dismiss any of them based on what your theory is in how it's been categorized, because it's easy to do so. You put, and I think the manufacturers are guilty of doing this, they put a club within a handicap space, and it suggested that the P790 is from a, I don't know, 5 to 15 handicapper. So you put yourself, okay, I play off 12, the P790 is for me. And then they've got the QI iron that might be a 15 to 28 handicapper club. So you dismiss that one straight away. And I don't know what they do in terms of the 11 hybrid, but I would imagine it's aimed at higher handicappers. Don't do that. Don't make that mistake. Try all different types of clubs. Really look at all these different parameters in terms of data, and you will find that in your hands, this club will be, these three clubs will probably perform very differently than they have in mind. So be very careful when you're spending a fair old few quid. When you make the decision, make sure it's the right one. Make sure you get custom fit, get some TrackMan data, and then you should have an informed or the information to make an informed decision before you waste a load of money. As ever, thank you for watching. Like I said, data-led experiments. Hope you enjoyed that one. Next time we'll do a similar thing out on the golf course and see if my opinion changes. Right, I'll see you all soon.